two rookie cops had just graduated from the police academy. Schmidt was smart but awkward. Jenko was athletic but terrible at school. And believe it or not, these two had already known each other in high school. Back then, Schmidt was the nerd nobody noticed. Jenko was the popular athlete everyone knew. For days before graduation, Schmidt finally asked the girl he liked to prom. But she turned him down in front of everyone. And Jenko wasn't doing much better. Despite being the school's star athlete, his terrible grades got him banned from prom. So just like that, both of them left high school with unfinished business. But neither of them knew they would meet again. 7 years later, Schmidt and Jenko unexpectedly reunited at the police academy. And the funny part was, nothing had really changed. Jenko still dominated physical training. But he failed almost every written test. Schmidt was the exact opposite. He crushed the written exams. But physical training nearly killed him. So the two decided to work together. Schmidt helped Jenko with academics. Jenko trained Schmidt physically. And somehow, the two managed to graduate together. At this point, they thought they were finally ready for real police work. But reality hit them pretty fast. Instead of chasing dangerous criminals, they were sent to patrol a local park. Their biggest jobs were rescuing frisbees and stopping kids from feeding ducks. Then one day, they spotted a group of young men openly using drugs. Finally, their big chance had arrived. The two rookies rushed in and made their first arrests. Everything seemed perfect. Until they made one very important mistake. They failed to properly read the suspects their Miranda rights. And because of that, the entire arrest fell apart. The suspects were released. Their hard work was basically wasted. But strangely enough, this failure opened another door. The police department was restarting an old undercover unit. It was called Jump Street. The unit specialized in crimes involving teenagers. And because Schmidt and Jenko still looked young, they were perfect for the job. So instead of staying in the park, they were going undercover. And where were they going? Back to high school. Their mission was simple. A dangerous new drug was spreading through the school. Students were getting addicted. Some had already died. The rookies had to find the student dealer, then follow the trail to the supplier, and finally take down the entire operation. Their captain gave them new identities. Schmidt became Brad. Jenko became Doug. They were also ordered to stay at Schmidt's parents' house during the investigation. And just like that, two grown cops were heading back to high school. But things got awkward almost immediately. Jenko wanted to make a cool entrance. So they borrowed a classic Chevy Camaro. Unfortunately, their idea of cool was seriously outdated. Jenko wore his backpack over one shoulder. But everyone else was wearing backpacks properly. That was their first lesson. High school had changed. And the two cops had no idea how to keep up. Things got even worse when their fake identities started causing problems. Jenko even forgot his new name. And then came the biggest problem. Their classes were completely switched. Schmidt, the former straight-A student, was sent to drama class. Jenko, the former athlete, was sent to advanced chemistry. So their undercover operation immediately became a complete mess. But Schmidt soon found someone who could help. Her name was Molly. Schmidt started talking to her and carefully looked for information about the drugs. Molly hinted that the biggest drug source might be much closer than they expected. Meanwhile, Jenko was struggling badly in chemistry. But his athletic build and good looks made him popular with the teacher. And while Jenko was trying to survive chemistry, Schmidt finally found a possible lead. The two managed to connect with the student dealer. His name was Eric. Eric was popular. He was smart. He was good-looking. And almost everyone at school liked him. Which made him the perfect person to hide a drug operation. But Eric wasn't stupid. He wanted proof that Schmidt and Jenko were real buyers. So he made them take the drug right in front of him. The two undercover cops had no choice. They swallowed it to protect their identities. And the moment the deal was finished, they rushed straight to the bathroom. They tried everything to throw up. But nothing worked. And that's when the drug finally started kicking in. First came the laughter. Then came the hallucinations. And after that, everything went completely off the rails. The two cops started acting like they had forgotten they were undercover. They embarrassed themselves all over school. They completely lost control. And by the time the effects wore off, their first big undercover mission had already become a disaster. But there was one useful result. Eric trusted them more. Back at Jump Street, Schmidt and Jenko started connecting the clues. Their captain wanted results. So they investigated the chemistry lab. They suspected it might be the drug factory. But after watching the students there, they discovered something completely different. The lab was just a place for nerds to study and mess around with science. Another dead end. But one of those science students turned out to be extremely useful. He was great at chemistry. And he also knew electronics. He could even create software to secretly monitor a phone. That gave the rookies their next plan. Schmidt decided to throw a huge party at his parents' house. Eric and Molly would be invited. While everyone was distracted, Jenko and the science team would install surveillance equipment on Eric's phone. It sounded like a solid plan. Of course, nothing went according to plan. The party started normally. Then another high school's drug crew suddenly showed up. They wanted to challenge Eric over territory. And within seconds, the party turned into a fight. Schmidt tried to control the situation. Instead, he got knocked down. Jenko jumped into the fight. Soon the entire house was out of control. Schmidt even got stabbed in the back and didn't notice. But somehow, the disaster helped their investigation. Eric became convinced that Schmidt and Jenko were simply reckless teenagers. He completely dropped his suspicion. Then he offered Schmidt a place in his drug operation. And more importantly, he promised to introduce him to the real supplier. Now the investigation finally had a direct path. Schmidt secretly joined Eric's operation. He took drugs from Eric. Then passed the evidence to the police. Jenko stayed close to the science students. He helped with surveillance. He also learned more about chemistry. For once, both cops were actually making progress. But their undercover lives were getting complicated. Schmidt was becoming more involved with Molly. And Jenko noticed that Schmidt was spending more and more time acting like a real student. Then Molly invited Schmidt to prom. Schmidt accepted. But Jenko later overheard Schmidt insulting him. Their partnership started falling apart. At the same time, the drug problem was getting worse. Another undercover student brought back bad news. The drug had already spread to their school. Their captain was furious. He gave them one final warning. Find the supplier. Or get out of Jump Street. And then they finally got a lead. Eric was arranging another drug pickup. Schmidt and Jenko immediately tried to follow him. But their car had been immobilized for illegal parking. So they had to steal a driving instructor's car. And this wasn't an ordinary car. It had 2 steering wheels. 2 sets of pedals. And 2 cops who couldn't agree on anything. Schmidt wanted to stay close. Jenko wanted more distance. One pressed the brake. The other pressed the gas. And before long, they had turned a simple surveillance mission into a full-blown chase. The bikers started chasing them. The 2 rookies had no police uniforms. No police car. And barely any weapons. They grabbed another vehicle and kept going. Jenko even used a badminton racket to launch a golf ball at one of the bikers. Somehow, it worked. But while the chase was happening, Schmidt was supposed to be performing in the school play. And he was nowhere near the stage. By the time he got back, the performance was already in trouble. His college application was also sitting on his desk. Jenko realized Schmidt was becoming too involved in his fake life. And that finally pushed their partnership over the edge. The 2 started fighting in front of the entire school. Their captain had seen enough. Both Schmidt and Jenko were kicked out of Jump Street. Just like that, their undercover career was over. That night, Jenko packed his things. Schmidt came to see him. After everything they had been through, Jenko finally admitted that he considered Schmidt his brother. And then, just when the 2 were about to leave everything behind, Eric suddenly showed up. Something had gone badly wrong with the drug deal. The bikers had discovered the police were involved. Eric was afraid he was going to prison. But he still trusted Schmidt and Jenko. Because after everything that had happened at school, Eric believed they were just reckless teenagers. So he offered them one final job. Security at prom. The real supplier would be there. This was their last chance to finish the case. Eric even gave them guns. Jenko quickly proved he could shoot. Schmidt still struggled to pull the trigger. But this time, they decided to finish the mission together. They got dressed for prom. Schmidt even helped Jenko fix his tie. And for the first time in a while, the 2 were working together again. Then they walked into the prom. And everything looked normal. At least for a few minutes. Schmidt found Molly. But Molly had already taken the drug. She was starting to lose control. Schmidt tried to warn her that something dangerous was about to happen. He even revealed that he was actually a cop. But before Molly could process everything, Eric called Schmidt away. The final deal was ready. Schmidt and Jenko followed Eric. And then came the biggest reveal of the entire case. The real supplier was their gym teacher. The same teacher who had been around the students every day. He had used his position at the school to hide his drug operation. But there was another surprise. The biker gang also arrived for the deal. Schmidt and Jenko tried to stay unnoticed. Unfortunately, their ridiculous prom outfits made them impossible to ignore. The bikers started recognizing them. Then Molly suddenly appeared. She was heavily affected by the drug. And she accidentally exposed Schmidt and Jenko as undercover cops. Everything collapsed instantly. Eric realized his 2 friends had been lying to him. The bikers realized they were cops. Molly was taken hostage. And Schmidt and Jenko were forced to drop their weapons. The situation looked completely hopeless. But then 2 veteran undercover cops appeared. They were former members of Jump Street. They recognized exactly what Schmidt and Jenko were going through. The veterans had spent years working undercover. They knew the risks. They knew the pressure. And they knew how quickly an undercover operation could fall apart. But before they could save everyone, the situation turned deadly. The gym teacher grabbed the drug money. Then he took Eric and Molly and tried to escape. The veteran cops stayed behind to protect Schmidt and Jenko. But they were killed in the chaos. Now the 2 rookies had no backup. No team. No second chance. They had to finish the job themselves. Jenko charged forward first. His physical strength helped him take down one of the attackers. Schmidt still couldn't bring himself to shoot. So he used his gun as a weapon instead. The two fought their way through the building. And finally, they caught up with the gym teacher. They had enough evidence to prove he was the real supplier. But he still had Eric and Molly. The chase continued outside. 3 groups grabbed different stretch limousines. The gym teacher had Eric and Molly. Schmidt and Jenko followed. The bikers chased everyone. The high school prom had officially become a massive car chase. Then Jenko ran out of ammunition. So he used the one thing he had learned at school. Chemistry. He built a makeshift explosive from materials inside the car. Then he threw it into the enemy vehicle. Nothing happened at first. But seconds later, the explosion finally came. The enemy car lost control. And the entire chase descended into chaos. Eventually, only the gym teacher remained. He still had Molly as a hostage. He ordered Schmidt and Jenko to drop their weapons. Jenko suddenly stepped in front of Schmidt. The gym teacher fired. The bullet hit Jenko's bulletproof vest. Jenko survived. And now Schmidt had no reason to hesitate. He grabbed his gun. He took aim. And finally pulled the trigger. The gym teacher went down. Schmidt and Jenko arrested him. And this time, they did everything by the book. They properly read him his Miranda rights. Their first major mistake had finally been corrected. The drug operation was over. Eric was arrested. Molly was safe. And Schmidt finally got the high school ending he never had. He and Molly became a couple. Jenko was happy for his partner. The two had started as complete opposites. They had argued constantly. They had ruined each other's plans. They had even gotten each other kicked out of Jump Street. But after everything they had survived together, they had become brothers. Schmidt and Jenko returned to Jump Street. They were no longer useless rookies. They had completed a major undercover operation. The entire team finally recognized what they had accomplished. But there was no time to celebrate for long. Their captain immediately gave them another assignment. And this time, their next undercover location was a college. That's right. After surviving high school all over again, Schmidt and Jenko were heading straight back into the classroom. Their undercover career was only getting started.